What's up, guys? It's Gaz. Welcome to the Warframe video, and today we're going to go over Grendel a little bit. Yeah, this guy is not very popular, and I'd say it's for good reason, but I actually gave him a chance a couple days ago in a 3-hour survival, and I have learned some things about Grendel, some things that not even the wiki really had on them at the time of recording of this video. So we'll be going over that a little bit in this video, what I would use Grendel for, what I have used Grendel for, and some of the stuff about him that's terrible. Like, I consider a couple of his abilities just not even worth using, so. But if you have not already, make sure you check out the Twitch channel at twitch.tv/gaz_ttv. Hit the heart button on the screen, and it will follow the channel. You'll know when I go live, and I'd really appreciate it. So, now we got that out of the way, let's go over Grendel. And I have tried to make him look like a Kuva Guardian. I have the Kesheg and the Twin Roga on a Grendel, like, when I'm trying to just cosplay as a Kuva Guardian. That does work, but those weapons aren't really exactly what I'm trying to use all the time, so. The main gist of Grendel and what I'll be using him for, I'll be using him for his first ability, which is the Eat attack. It's pretty good, actually. You'd be surprised how useful that is. And his second ability, which is called Nourish. And what Nourish does, it gives you can choose between 3 different buffs. There's Nourish Energy, which once you eat an enemy, by the way, you have to eat an enemy to get these abilities to work in the first place. You eat an enemy, and then you can select one of the 3 buffs. So Energy is going to give you and your teammates in the area when you cast it, a energy regeneration buff. It's not going to give you energy from the ability itself, but if you were to pick up an energy orb, it will give you more energy from that orb, for example. Or from Zedric. You'll get more energy per second from Zedric. So this orb usually gives you 25. I got an energized proc there. It wasn't going to give me full energy either way, but the general gist of it is there's a multiplier. So with our current build, the energy will be multiplied by 1.29. So that's with a little bit of power strength. It does scale power strength. He's also got Nourished Armor, so the way that Nourished Armor works, you would think like, oh, Nourished Armor is going to give you an additional armor buff. No, it does not give you an additional armor buff. They called it Nourished Armor for some reason, but what it actually does is that when you get shot while you have Nourished Armor active, let me just get it cast here. When you get shot while Nourished Armor is active, you actually are going to release a toxin, radius of toxin damage in the area. So those guys are taking damage. I have not shot them once. They took about 216 damage from the Nourished Armor debuff. Not debuff, but buff in general. That's probably his worst buff, honestly, so I would not recommend it. It will also proc when you kill enemies. So if I kill this guy, there was another Nourished Toxin. I'm just going to call it Nourished Toxin. I feel like that's a better way to explain it. Another Nourished Toxin AoE, like, barf, I guess. He has a lot of barfing, a lot of burping, and all this kind of gross stuff. So that's why I don't really like Grendel that much, besides his other crappy abilities. But, yeah, the third buff that he has is called Nourished Strike. And this is most likely the most useful one, and the one I will be using him for if I ever play him again. So what this one does... One second, let's get this enemy out of our gut. Alright, that guy's dead. So the way that his third buff works, Nourished Strike, it's actually going to give you, the way it actually works, it says it gives you additional toxin damage, but what actually is happening, it's an additional toxin damage mod on your weapon, and your teammates' weapons if they're in the radius when you cast this. So, with our build, 1.58 multiplier for toxin damage, it's basically like a 58% toxin mod that you just throw in everyone's weapons. So, a couple ways you can, we'll show how that works in a couple seconds here, but yeah, we're going to be combining that second ability with his first ability, Feast. And what Feast does, it's the Eat attack that you've probably seen Grendel use. If you've ever seen a Grendel in the wild, which I would be surprised you have because he's not very popular. So you press the button, and then he starts, like, he opens his belly stomach thing and just starts trying to eat enemies. So you want to actually aim the reticle, like the aiming reticle, at the enemies you want to eat. So this is what actually confused me at first about Grendel. I'm like, because the way the animation looks, you'd think it's like, oh, it's a big cone in front of you. Like, if I just look at this guy, all these guys will be eaten. No, it actually is whatever you're aiming at, you will eat. So, so as an example right here, I start eating over here. I move my cursor across, and I eat all those guys. So, as you keep eating enemies, his mouth will be open for longer. And yeah, I really don't like describing these abilities because they're all really gross. But yeah, while those enemies are eaten and they're in your stomach, they will drain energy per second. So that's one of the big downfalls of Grendel, is he has a lot of energy drain if you're eating lots of enemies. So I'm actually going with a really high efficiency build. Additionally, while they are in your stomach, they'll get their armor removed per second, and when you barf them up, they actually take a bunch of toxin damage. So he's actually pretty good against high shield enemies like these Moas. You see right there, they took like 30,000 toxin damage, and I instantly killed them. So not like they're very hard to kill anyway, but yeah, I'll show you some survival gameplay here in a second. He actually, that eating attack is pretty useful. By the way, the amount of energy you drain per second does scale with however many enemies you've eaten. So for example, we're going to eat 20 enemies right here. Now, those enemies are all in our stomach. Look at how fast our energy is draining. That's with about 170% efficiency. So, also, while you're using your buffs, as I said, like the buffs are very important in Grendel for my build. You actually deal damage to the enemies in your stomach and heal yourself when you cast those buffs while you're eating enemies. So, these guys have been chewed up for a little bit. They've got quite a bit of their armor removed. Let's puke them back up now. As you see, all those 170 gunners are dead. So, that's because they got a bunch of their armor removed, and they got a huge toxin damage proc once I barfed them back up. So, yep, I really, really love describing these abilities and hearing these disgusting sound effects. It really, really is. It's why I play Warframe pretty much, guys. So, let's go over the build. Now, I'm just going to let you know, this is not exactly the build I would be running if I put a bunch of Form into Grendel, but I am not really planning on putting a bunch of Form on him right now. So, maybe in the future. So, the things that are important here are you want some range, and you really want some efficiency. Like we've got, this is the wrong rank fleeing expertise, but you want some duration for your buff, for how long the buffs are going to last. You want efficiency, so you're not draining a bunch of energy per second with your feast, and you can cast your buff abilities for cheaper energy costs. And you also want some range, so you can eat enemies from pretty far away. And did I say duration? Because you want them to, like, I already said that, I think. Okay. Adaptation. This is good for like normal level missions. For high levels, adaptation usually falls off like a couple hundred levels in, so wouldn't worry about that too much. But it works on the build. We've also got Prime Flow because, like I said, energy drain like crazy. So you're gonna want to have, like, I'd say these 3 mods are pretty much staple. Getting really high efficiency with Streamline and Fleeting Expertise, and then Prime Flow to give you a big energy pool as well. So if I was to max out all these mods, like I know people are always like, why don't you max out your mods? Because there's no reason to do it actually. You could put one form on here, just put like a dash polarity on here for stretch or for streamline. You'll never take that mod off, so it's a safe form to put on there. And then yeah, since power strength does scale up his buffs and the damage on the armor removal and the damage on his one, we're actually gonna put power drift in the top slot. For my optimal build, I would probably have Prime Sure-Footed up there because he just feels like a frame that doesn't want to get knocked over. So Prime Sure-Footed, if you have it, be really nice. We're not using the 4 or the 3 for my playstyle, so Catapult is a literally worthless mod for this playstyle. And then, yeah, we've got Augur Message for some shield gating. Not really a huge deal. And then we've also got Vitality for some health. You honestly could take off Vitality and Adaptation for some different mods, like Rolling Guard, like something else like that. But this worked in a 3-hour survival, so I'm going to keep it. And then additionally, we have Arcane Energize, like I said, energy problems, and then Arcane Strike. Because the really fun thing for Grendel that I like doing, and Strike is important for this, is you eat a bunch of enemies, you shoot them up for a second, and then you barf them back up, and then you nuke-core the pile of enemies, and you just kill them with melee. So basically, eat, barf, melee. It's that easy. They're all dead. Now, of course, when you have Blood Rush fully stacked up, you'll do more damage to these enemies. So yeah, it's more of like a weapon-based melee playstyle for Grendel. But the nice thing about the Eat attack is, like, say like you're in Kuva Survival and the tower, like, see this Health Orb is the Kuva Survival tower right here. There's a bunch of enemies all around it. I can just jump over, like say I'm over here on the other side of the room, run over. All those enemies are gone now. They're not attacking the tower anymore. So I just saved the tower as Grendel. Some other frames are going to need to use like Magus Lockdown if they have no form of CC. They don't have any instant kill button for everything. So yeah, that's where Grendel can actually be better than some other frames in some cases. So yeah, I don't actually like him, but I have given him an actual chance now, and I was pleasantly surprised. Like I said, I won't be playing him because he's very gross. But let's go over some tips here. So like I said, on his Nourished Toxin Strike buff, or whatever it's called, it will actually make it so your weapon will do toxin damage if it's only impact, puncture, and slash. So for example here, we have just impact, puncture, and slash on our Daikyu, and we're going to use the Nourish Strike buff, it will make the weapon deal toxin damage. Not a bunch of toxin damage, but some toxin damage. So against these MOAs, it will actually penetrate their shield, and they will take... it can also proc toxin. The wiki was not very clear. It's like, weapons will deal toxin damage and can proc. What it actually should have said is it's an additional toxin damage mod in your build, basically. Because right there you can see it does pure toxin, but here we are using the Fulmin with electricity. So it's not like Saren's 3, where Saren's 3 will convert the damage entirely into toxin, and you also, like, Saren's 3 is just ridiculous, but it's not like Saren's 3. It's an additional toxin damage mod on your build. It's electric and impact. We will be proccing corrosive here with the Nourish Strike buff, so that's something to keep in mind. It doesn't usually matter too much when you have like a normally modded weapon, like my Kuva shield egg with corrosive and heat. It just does more corrosive damage. It doesn't like change it to some weird element like gas or something random like that. So, yep, and here you go, just proving that it changes it to corrosive. And there you go, and he's got corrosive proc. So, all right, cool. So let's move on to an example of the Chew and Barf strat in decently high levels. So here are these guys are level 600. So I ate 4 of them. This is how many? This is like 2 hours and 20 minutes into a survival. You could also eat nullifiers if their bubbles are down. That's pretty fun. And then I just found a place to barf them out, and there you go. And they are all dead. So pretty nice stuff. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I use Grendel for. Also casting the buffs to buff my teammates. That's why the range is also pretty helpful. Is if you're not staying right on top of your teammates, getting those buffs to go off can be a little bit annoying. So you want some range there. And let's do a little bit of Grendel gameplay at high levels while we talk about some other stuff for a little bit. So keep in mind, like I said this during the run. This was all live on Twitch. We have a Necros and a Wisp in this squad. Necros and Wisp are basically carrying the run. It's not like me playing Grendel right here is like the pinnacle of helpfulness in gameplay. I can give my teammates an extra toxin damage mod on their weapon. I can give them energy regen improvements. And I can give them that really terrible toxin retaliation debuff thing that I don't like at all. Like, honestly, I'm not going to even bother with the energy cost for Nourished Armor in the future after I realize what it actually does. So, yeah. And then as far as his other abilities, like Regurgitate, I think it's Regurgitate is the third one. It basically just, you fire out a projectile like your Kirby, where you have an enemy in your stomach, you spit them out, and you can spit them off the ledge. Spitting enemies off the ledge to insta-kill them is the only useful thing I found about this, and it doesn't even work on some enemies. So, yeah, his third ability is kind of bad. It can deal some decent toxin damage in some situations, but I'd rather just eat the enemies with his 1 and then just puke them back out, and they'll take a bunch of toxin damage from that instead. So, his 3 is trash. His 4 is the Meatball. The Meatball is going to actually drain a bunch of extra energy per second, and it can be useful at low levels, but it also requires you to eat enemies. All his abilities, besides his 1, requires enemies to be eaten. So that's why I only really focus on his 1 and his 2, is because even if you spit the enemies out, his 2 will still be active. So that's pretty nice. Like, you eat the enemies to cast your 2, and you spit them out to kill them, and you still get the 2 buffs going. So, also, really nice thing about his 2's buffs. They are sticky to your teammates. So if I cast it while I'm near my teammates and they get the buffs, they will actually keep the buffs even if I run away from them. So that's pretty nice. I would love to fit more duration onto my build with Grendel, but to get some more duration, I'd most likely need to run Narrow-Minded, which is going to reduce my range, and that just won't do. So, yeah, that's the thing. I could honestly take off Adaptation or Vitality for Narrow-Minded, but then my eat radius is going to be like a portion of what it is, and the eat radius and the buff radius are very important on Grendel. So that's something you're going to want to keep in mind for sure if you're ever going to want to play him in a long survival. Which I do think he's relatively okay in a long survival. Definitely nothing top tier, but I do think he's more useful than Garuda. So there you go. Not like that's saying much, since I find Garuda to be one of the most useless frames in the game. Some things you could... I'm not going to turn this into Garuda rant, but some things you could do to make Garuda more useful. Make it like where her healing is like Grendel. It's sticky. You walk into the healing ring for her 2, and you hold on to that healing until the blood altar goes away. That would be a great change. There's been lots of discussion about how terrible Garuda is recently. So, just because she can get a weapon damage buff of 100% from her passive does not make her good. So, that's enough about that. I could go on about that all day, and I usually do. But yeah, as you see right here, like we didn't have a Korra here. The Korra DC'd. If the tower was surrounded by enemies, I could just eat them all with Grendel's one, and I find that actually kind of nice. So I was also using Naramon here because you can't restore energy to Grendel through Zeneric while you have enemies consumed. So keep that in mind. So energy pad's gonna be your friend in a long survival as usual, and things like that. So also good point. Person in chat right there saying Grendel can bring enemies to the Korra or Hydrate tentacles and dome to increase loot drops. That is a really, really reaching for usefulness thing. So that's also a thing. You can just you can eat enemies, bring them to another area, and then kill them in a certain spot if you ever needed to do that. So yeah. So that's going to be basically it for the video, guys. He is not as terrible as I initially thought, but he definitely is nothing amazing. I would still rather bring a Saren, a Wisp, a Korra, a Necros, a lot of other stuff besides Grendel, but he can get the job done for sure. So, yeah, definitely. Like I didn't even go over his 3 or his 4. if you take out his 3 and his 4, sure, he can eat stuff and buff your teammates, but that ain't really much if you ask me. So, I'll talk to you guys next time. Make sure you check out the Twitch channel as always, and take it easy, guys. Peace.